Live from the Cary Arts Center in downtown Cary, North Carolina. A Cody Hand production. The Speakers Collaborative. Featuring Ashley Aubuchon-Arcand, Sean Nason, Peter Milner, Jillian Totman, Patrick Anderson, and Cody Hand. And now Cody Hand.
Good evening. Welcome to the Speakers Collaborative. My name is Cody Hand, host and producer, founder. I'm thrilled that you're with us tonight, both in the studio audience and at home. We've got a great evening for you, full of inspiring stories by some amazing speakers and me. Throughout the night, you're going to hear some amazing stories. You're also going to have an opportunity to provide feedback to our speakers who are doing this event tonight to launch their speaking career. I invite you to get out your phones. First, silence them. And this is probably the first time you're going to hear at an event. Please keep your phone out. For our live audience, in your program on the bottom right is a QR code. I invite you to scan that QR code now, and we'll get started on some of those questions. Marin, could you bring me my iPad, please? As you scan that QR code, you'll register for various of our questions. And after each one of our speakers, and those of you at home, you have a QR code on your screen. Thank you, dear. For those of you at home, you have a QR code on your screen. Those questions will come up automatically. And I was supposed to bring this out earlier. So, if you have scanned the QR code, everybody scanned it? Good to go? You're going to get a couple of questions right now. The first one is, what is your first name? You can lie if you want. Sam's here. Awesome. I'll give you a few more seconds to do that. After every speaker, this poll will go live again. If you happen to shut down your phone and need to go back, you'll just open the poll everywhere or scan the QR code again, and it will take you right back to the question that we're ready for. Next question. Are you excited to be here? Yes, no, I'm here for the drinks. And then finally, who did you come to support? If you came on the invitation of one of our speakers, please select that one. Well, I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to hear what we're going to hear tonight. I'm really excited for your participation, both in person and on the live stream. If at any time tonight you're inspired to support one of our speakers, there will be a question at the end of each session asking you to submit your email address for a testimonial. You'll see in your program and online a description of each of our speakers. And Brian, without further ado, I think it's time to announce our first speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please
welcome to the stage, presented by my advocate, Ashley Aubuchon-Arcand.
I'm here today to convince you that self-advocacy is not selfish. By the end of our time together, you are going to have the information and inspiration you need to take your life into your own hands. Let's start with the basics. Self-advocacy really just means you are your own best advocate. It's that you know your value that you bring to your job, to your clients, to your family, and your community. It's not just that you know your value, but it's also that you're brave enough to communicate it in a way to help you get what you want and need. Now, advocating for yourself will go against what many of you have been taught, and also go against what many of you are comfortable with. I have talked to thousands of people about this very topic, and there are some common themes in those conversations. People are hesitant to put themselves out there based on 3 obstacles they perceive as being in their way. So today, I'm going to break down those 3, what I call excuses, that could be keeping you from being a true advocate for yourself and getting where you want to be. You ready? Excuse number 1. I think my work should speak for itself. A lot of us have been taught that we should keep our head down, do our job, and we will be rewarded. It's a noble idea, almost idealistic. In a perfect world, no one has to talk about their contributions because it's so obvious to everyone how valuable you are. Unfortunately, that's not reality. Let me give you an example. I once managed a team of over 30 people. And while I would have loved to know every single great thing they were doing, it just wasn't possible. So what we did, we set up a monthly one-on-one, where as the manager, I showed up and I didn't say a word. The employee brought forward what we were going to talk about. They would bring a list of accomplishments, of ideas, challenges they were having. Anything they wanted to talk about, including skills and career goals. And in the first month we implemented this new format, the team completely blew my mind. Padma came to me and she shared the story where she showed incredible empathy for a client. She really took the time to listen to their frustration and went above and beyond what our processes even called for her to do to make sure that their issues were resolved as soon as possible. Catherine on my team was so proud, she delivered a project 2 weeks early and under budget. Jason brought several ideas to address challenges the team was having. And a couple months later, he brought back data to show the improvements that had been made from implementing those ideas. I started to see more emails get forwarded to me that clients had sent my team members, thanking them for giving them delightful experiences. Now, did all of these things just start happening when we implemented this new format? No, they've been happening all along. I just didn't know about them. So by giving this opportunity for the team to bring forward their accomplishments, it allowed me as the manager to really understand each of their contributions. And when it came time to making decisions on who was going to take on more responsibility or who deserved a promotion, it made my job a lot easier. But it also was great for each employee to take the time to reflect and be proud of their work on a regular basis. So no, your work will not always speak for itself. Sometimes you have to speak for it. Excuse number 2. I believe when the time is right, my boss will promote me. Another novel idea. We will get what we want simply because we deserve it. When people say this to me, I usually have a few questions. Does your boss even know you want a promotion? When considering who out of you and your peers are going to get it, why would they pick you? How do they know you deserve it? And have you even made it clear that you want it? I mentioned I've been talking about this topic for years, but even I made this mistake just a few years ago of assuming my boss knew what I wanted in my career. I just wrapped up a big communications project for my vice president, and I was starting to look at what I wanted to do next. So I set up 30 minutes to have a career conversation with him. I wanted to reflect on the work I had been doing and see where he envisioned me on his leadership team in the future. We got into the meeting and he says, "This is great timing, Ashley. I'm taking your name forward next week in our top talent review." This was news to me, and I was super excited. But then he said, I'm going to recommend you do communications for a senior vice president. That might sound amazing to you, but it was kind of devastating to me because that did not align with my career goals at all. I wanted to have my own team again, to lead and inspire. I wanted to own a piece of the business and drive significant results for my company. And I thought he knew that he knew what I wanted in my career. But he didn't until I told him. The good news is that we left that conversation agreeing he would now recommend me to be a chief of staff to a senior executive. And I had no idea that just 3 weeks later, I would get the opportunity of a lifetime to interview with and work for the CEO of my company, a Fortune 50 international technology company. And it's all because I didn't wait for my boss to promote me. I set up 30 minutes with him to make sure he knew what I wanted. We're moving on to excuse number 3, our final excuse and the most common. I hear it all the time. Ashley, this makes me uncomfortable. What if people judge me or think that I'm bragging? And I get it. It can be uncomfortable. But I want you to imagine a couple scenarios. Picture you just get an email from your client raving about the positive experience you gave them when you spent hours helping them solve an issue. But instead of forwarding that email to your boss, you sit on it. You don't want to come off as being full of yourself. Imagine you just win a prestigious award in your industry, one that is extremely hard to get and is a testament to all the hours and passion you put into your company and clients. But instead of sharing it with your network or on your social media, you don't tell anybody for fear that they may think you're bragging. Is that really the right thing to do for you? Should you stay humble, downplay your value, pretend you didn't achieve something amazing? What a wasted opportunity to show your impact in the world. Now, what if I told you there are some things you can do to make it a little less uncomfortable to share those types of things? The first, use we instead of me. Why not show how proud you are to have been a part of a team that accomplished this milestone? By sharing the credit, you are showing that you brought value and also that you're a team player. The second, use data and facts to show your value. No matter what you do, if you're in corporate life like me, if you're a teacher, if you're a stay-at-home parent, or if you're a small business owner, you are bringing value to someone, probably a lot of people. We don't always take the time, though, to measure that value. You can do this a couple ways. Qualitatively, send out a survey to your colleagues and your customers asking for feedback and testimonials on your services and products. Quantitatively, calculate some stats. How much time or money are you saving your clients by implementing a project or helping them solve an issue? By using data, you take opinion out of the discussion. And it's one of the most convincing ways to show your value without being braggy. But I have to ask, those people you fear are going to judge you, do they really matter? Are their opinions worth you not getting a promotion or more money or a more fulfilling opportunity? While people may be judging you for what you share, there are also people watching who can use your very skills. Self-advocacy is not selfish. As soon as you start to know your value and start to communicate it to your manager so you get the promotion, to your social media followers so they see how people are getting value out of your services, or even to your family and friends so that they know what skills you have, like cooking or making fun graphic t-shirts. The moment you start sharing is the moment new opportunities will present themselves. Just last month, I was sharing my weekly newsletter that gives tips on how to improve your communication and relationship skills. And a woman reached out to me. We had originally connected because we were both moms of kids with Down syndrome. And when she reached out, she told me she's on the board of the local Gigi's Playhouse and that they could really use my skills to help create a jobs program for adults with Down syndrome so they could enter the workforce and make a living. It was incredible timing because I had just started to look for ways I could contribute more to that community. And I'm so excited that in a few weeks, we'll be promoting that jobs program to local businesses. And it's all because, first, I put myself out there and I shared my expertise. And second, she put herself out there and she asked for what she needed and what the Down syndrome community needed. You see? Self-advocacy is not selfish. It's actually contagious. The more you start to show your value, the more others will follow your lead. And the more you get your needs met, then you can start to take that advocacy and apply it to helping others. But you can't change the world without first sharing your value. I've asked a lot of questions of you as I've encouraged you tonight to really reflect on what it is you want out of your life and your career. But I have one more I'd like to leave you with. What is the greater risk here? Keeping quiet for fear of being judged, or putting yourself out there to live the life you were made for? Thank you.
The Speakers Collaborative will return in a moment. During the break, please join us in providing feedback to our speakers. Simply scan the QR code and follow the prompts. Thank you.
Do you want to tell your story? Stop sitting on the sidelines. We built a stage. Get on it.
The Speakers Collaborative is coming to a city near you. If you are interested in becoming a speaker, email us at info@thespeakerscollaborative.com. To be a part of our live studio audience, visit www.thespeakerscollaborative.com. We built you a stage. Get on it.
So I scheduled 3 of these coffees with some really close friends. And the first one, we sat down and we just had a really great conversation. Who's your accountant? How do you pay for insurance? When did you have to remortgage the house? You know, all these things. I asked them a question at the end, just off the cuff, and some of the best questions come from spontaneous ideas. I said, what do you know now that you wish you had known then? And he kind of steadied himself, I mean, he put his coffee down and he said, "Know your worth."
This segment is sponsored by Daniels Hand Law, Triangle's preeminent real estate and estate planning concierge law firm. Learn more at www.danielshandlaw.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Experience Evangelist, Sean Nason.
He bills himself as an experienced evangelist, and he is truly one. Please welcome to the stage Sean Nason.
So I am what happens when a musician and pastor turns into a Walt Disney Imagineer, then turns into a CXO, founder, and author, and who ultimately gets and beats cancer and decides that it's time to humanize the world one person at a time. So each of us have special dates in our lives that we remember. For me, November 15th, 1997. That is the day that I married my wife of now 27, almost 28 years, and who was my kindergarten sweetheart. On July 7th, 2008, our 15-year-old daughter was born that we had prayed for and longed for 10 years, and a loving mother decided to give her child up for adoption so we could have today our Kayla. May 30th, 2015, our son, Colby, was born, and another loving mother made the choice to give him up for adoption so we could have a son. And then April 15th, many of you think of that as a bad day, tax day. 2022, at 49 years old, I went in for a routine colonoscopy to wake up to hear those three dreaded words: you have cancer. I had no symptoms. I had no reason to believe that I had cancer. But I had to face my biggest fear in the 49 years of my life. And I call that fear, it's when I had to lean in and kiss my dragon. Then, Friday, the 13th of May, I had surgery. They removed 95% of my left lower colon. And at that moment, I heard again, not only did I have cancer, but it had spread. And so I started on a 10-month journey to go through 12 rounds of aggressive chemo. And I am happy to say today that I am what they call NED, no evidence of disease. So I want to introduce to you tonight two very dear friends of mine, Toothless and Hiccup. And some of you here in the audience may have children and you're smiling because you know Toothless and Hiccup. Toothless is a dragon. And he got his name because he's toothless. And Hiccup is a 5-year-old boy who was son of a Viking king. And you may ask, what are you talking about, Sean? If you have not seen the movies How to Train Your Dragon, you need to go watch them after tonight. Toothless and Hiccup had this bond that was unbreakable as you walk through their journey in the 3 movies. But Hiccup had been trained his whole life to hate dragons and to kill them. And many times in our own personal lives, we actually get told to slay our dragons. Well, tonight, I want to challenge you with this. We're going to begin to kiss our dragons. Because Hiccup took a chance, this 15-year-old boy, and leaned in and loved this dragon and built a bond that ultimately changed the world. And I don't know about you, but in the day and time we live in today, we probably need a little bit more change and a little bit more love and a little bit more kindness in our world. But we have to learn to kiss our dragons. So I want to give you a concept that comes out of my book called Kiss Your Dragons. And you ask, why, Sean, do you have a podium here? Remember, I told you I was a preacher first in my career. And all preachers have to have podiums in front of them. I want to introduce this concept to you around heart sets. Those are the truths that enable us to live a more positive, courageous life. And there's an old Sioux proverb that says, the longest journey is from your head to your heart. And I firmly believe, after walking through my journey of cancer, that many times what we're scared of, things that we fear, are just in our heads. So I want to give you 5 things to think about. The first one is just simply kiss your dragons. We tend to run from the things that we fear the most. But we need to snuggle up with the things that are holding us back from being, in my terms, the badass the world needs you to be right now. Because we need more badasses in this world. The second one is you need to unleash your inner fire. What does that mean? That means turn your flashes of brilliance into flamethrowers of disruption by unapologetically announcing and launching your heart into the biggest challenge you find. I shared with you about my children, Kayla, my 15-year-old daughter, and Colby, my 8-year-old son. We had no idea that when we adopted Colby, the challenges that would be before us. My 8-year-old son was diagnosed with childhood apraxia at 3 years old, that then turned into autism. Then ultimately, he has battled for the last 3 years epilepsy. And he has taught me to kiss more dragons in my life than I had in 50 years now. Because no matter what challenge is thrown before him, he continues to unleash the fire. And he continues to disrupt, sometimes in the good, sometimes in the bad. But he disrupts this world and makes us think a little bit different every day. Second, embrace your swarm. There's this concept in dragon mythology around swarms. And many of us in this room for lots of years talked about we have our tribe. The people that look like us, support us, surround us, friend us, are our biggest supporters. But a swarm goes a little bit deeper. A swarm is actually surrounding yourself with people that may look different, may think different, may challenge you in different ways. I've been very fortunate over the last 2.5 years to become an influencer on the LinkedIn space. And I have a swarm of about 105,000 people on LinkedIn now that challenge me daily to think and look different and to be who I need to be authentically for this world. And again, I think it's time we need a little bit more of that in our world. The fourth one is be the dragon. Kick fear's ass on the way to embodying the mindsets and heart sets that will empower you to change the world. On April 15th, 2022, after my diagnosis, my wife and I got into the car and I looked at her and I said, I am going to go public with this because men are scared to talk about these things. And I decided at that moment in my life that I was going to kick cancer's ass and was not going to allow it to control me or dominate me or change the way I needed to live and be. And the last one is soar with dragons. Rise above your challenges to fly with your swarm like a band of vigilance on the flashpoint of possibility. I challenge each and every one of you when you leave this auditorium tonight or when you turn off the live stream to go rise to the possibilities that are in front of you. We need more hiccups and toothless relationships in this world. And we need to love people a little bit deeper, and we need to kiss our dragons a whole lot more. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey with you tonight.
The Speakers Collaborative will return in a moment. During the break, please join us in providing feedback to our speakers. Simply scan the QR code and follow the prompts. Thank you.
So I just took a big, deep breath and I thought, you know what I really want to do? I would love to be an author. And I had this goal and I needed to do it. So what I did was I got to work. And I hired a writing coach because sometimes we all need a plan, right? And so every day I was very consistent. People here who know me know that I was writing every single morning. There's a champagne. I called my writing coach and I said, you know, I'm finished. You know, and it was one of those moments where I thought, you know what? I'm going to put into action what I teach in my book. So what I did was I reached out to somebody who's in the accountability group who just wrote a book. You know, I felt like if you're runners and you get to like mile 20 and you think, okay, I'm close, but I'm not quite there yet. And when I talked to David, he said, okay, Robin, you need to call this person, and you need to call this person and do this. And then he looked at me and he said, I guarantee you that you will have your book finished in 30 days. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can totally do this. I finished my book in 362 days.
This segment is proudly presented by Peter Milner Properties.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Peter Milner.
Ready? Friends, please join me in welcoming one of my really good longtime friends, Peter Milner.
Did you have a nickname growing up? I know I did. My name was Lupus, a disease. I didn't feel so good about that. Did you have a nickname? Well, thankfully, my nickname changed a little bit going through life, and so it changed from Lupus to, in high school, I got the name Fruit Loops, which was kind of an extension of Fruit of Lupus, but at least it took the sting out of it. And then in college, I became just straight up Fruit. And I like that. That was better. So tonight, I want to try to ask you to go on a journey with me, to look at our names and look at our stories and how our names and our stories chart the course of our lives, and how oftentimes the culture gets the best of us. And when I say culture, I mean exactly that. When I was a little bit younger, I was at a monastery called Mepkin Abbey, and I went there to get away and to be quiet. And I went there and I met with the guy, his name was Father Christian. And the first time he met me, he actually found out about my name. He found out that I was a Milner, and he said, "Oh, Milner, hat maker." And I didn't know anything about that until that moment. So this gentleman named me in that moment and blessed me as a person that was a hat maker. One day I was with Father Christian at Mepkin Abbey, and he said to me, "Peter, your biggest challenge is going to be against the culture." And so we have this challenge with our stories. We have the tendency to take our culture and put the culture onto our own story. But I think there is an antidote to that. And the antidote comes in the form of three things that I want to share with you tonight as ways to walk through and get through the challenges that the culture puts on us. The first thing is to write stuff down. Simple as that. When I moved out to Portland, Oregon with my ex-wife, we went out there in exploration of the Wild West, but also for me to be a chaplain. I had gone to seminary at Duke Divinity School, and I felt like I needed to be a better pastor. I didn't know what that looked like, but we went to Portland. And when we went there, I found out that we were pregnant. And I went to my mentor the next day when I found that out, and I said, "Fred, oh my gosh, I am very nervous. I don't know what to do." And he said, "Well, Peter, you can't out Jesus. You just need to write stuff down." And so I always say that to my friends, because in being a dad, sometimes you try to be everything to that child. I'm thankful that one of my children is here tonight, and it's been an amazing companion for the journey. But we'll talk about companionship later. But for now, I want to try to convince you that writing down what's on your heart is really helpful to breaking through what the culture is trying to teach you. Because ultimately, we have to wrestle with our story. What is our story? Where do we come from? Where are we going? And our name oftentimes will give us away. So when we were in Portland, Fred said, "You need to write things down, Peter." And so what happened was I took a journey in writing things down. And I journaled every day about my fears about my daughter being born. She was then born and everything was okay. And the journaling helped. So I would encourage you to write down not just your visions, but your fears. Another thing that happens in our life that I found in my life is on this journey of life, we have companions. And they can be as deep as children, but they can also be in very strange forms. Just the other day, I was at McDonald's. I have to say, I was getting a Big Mac, and I needed to get more napkins. And I don't know if any of you guys have had this struggle, but when I was in McDonald's, I went over to the dispenser and I started pulling down the napkins, and I pulled one down and it came out. The second one kind of ripped a little bit. And this elderly gentleman came up to me and said, "Hey, let me show you an easier way." And I thought, well, gosh, who is this guy? This 85-year-old man is telling me how to do this. I'm like, well, I don't know about this. And so he came over. I said, sure. He grabs the napkin dispenser and pulls the right side of the napkin dispenser off, grabs a stack of 50 napkins and hands them to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, you solved the biggest problem of the last 10 years of my life. Or like, what about printer cartridges? They've got these numbers, number 67, and I haven't gotten a printer cartridge until yesterday because I just finally got out to the store and got me a printer cartridge. We have these companions that come along in our life, and those companions help us to shape our stories. And they can be as small as a man at McDonald's or as large as our children. So in 2019, I experienced a little bit of a hiccup in my journey. And that hiccup is a part of the third section of what I think is important to get over what the culture wants to impress upon us. The culture wants us to think that we can do it on our own. You ever had that feeling? You can do it on your own? How's that worked out? I've struggled, and I really struggled mightily when I got cancer in 2019. And with that, I realized that I couldn't raise my child. I had to live my life in a hospital bed. I had to live my life connected to a chemotherapy bag, pumping in Folfox and oxaliplatin into my body every day. And I had to give up the idea of raising my child. But you know what? That story, that suffering was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Because it taught me a really important lesson. What's that lesson? Well, I'm afraid to tell you it's that we have to heal from the inside out. And we don't want to, because the culture wants us to build everything on top. They want us to look good. They want us to put the makeup on. They want us to look beautiful, run out on the court and have everybody cheer. And that's great. I love that. I did that in college. I was a basketball player. They yelled for me. It was great. But there's something else that we need to learn to make life a little bit easier, like getting napkins out of a dispenser. A little bit easier. And that is to heal from the inside out. I learned that through cancer. I got infected during cancer, and they had to do what's called debridement. And when you debride a wound, you take that wound and you remove all the dead skin. And it hurts. Oh boy, it hurts. It's horrible. And I had to go to this special clinic in Raleigh over on Blue Ridge Road. And I don't like driving by that clinic because I had to be reminded every time of being debrided of my dead skin. But it healed me from the inside out. And then I had to get this thing called hyperbaric oxygen to heal the wound. And I had to go underneath what they do is they take you and they put you underneath the water, so to speak. And for an hour and a half, you are underneath the water, and they take you down like you're at deep sea diving, and you heal. But you have to get the cells deep in your body that will bring the blood to them to then heal you from the inside out. So why am I telling you all this? Well, it's because I believe our stories matter. I believe our names matter, because they always have. There's this unbelievable story in the Bible that talks about how there's this man banging his head against the walls. The first thing that God does is comes to him. You know what he asks him? What's your name? What's your name? Same thing happened to Moses. Moses went to God and said, how am I going to talk to Pharaoh? And Moses said, tell him I am sent you. I am sent you. Our stories matter because our names matter, and our names have to be reorganized. And our culture has organized them in a way that kills us. It literally kills us. And it took cancer for me to realize that I didn't have to fake it until I made it. I mean, here I am on this stage, and I'm not faking it. This is real. So a third thing I think we need to do after we write down our story, after we have a companion that helps us get the napkins out of the dispenser better, is we have to share our suffering. And I think that for me has come through a really hard story that happened to me when I was a child. I had two wonderful brothers that named me Lupus because perhaps they were jealous. I don't know. I was the youngest. I don't know what was going through their mind. But when I was young, my mother, not my wife, would take me into the bushes and hide with me and breastfeed me because my brothers were looking for her. They wanted her time. They wanted her attention. Who could blame them? They want mother's love. I would go into the bushes with my mom, and so I felt so ashamed of myself for years. And so I lived in that shame. I lived in that place of hiding. Have you ever done that? Live in a place of hiding? Not because of anything you did, just because who you were, just because you're sitting there with your mother in a bush on Wesleyan Lane in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's crazy, but it happened. And we all have things we go through that make us feel ashamed. So we have to get out a piece of paper and write it down. And we have to have companions that come alongside of us and say, hey, I see you. I see you, buddy. I see you going through a hard time. I had this experience with cancer because when I was sick, I had a friend that flew out 3 times to see me. And that was incredible. He would do that. This is amazing. Have you ever been moved to companion somebody? I know you have. I know you have. Because you've been renamed. You have been renamed. You're not just Lupus. You're so much more than that. You're beautiful. You came here tonight. I get to speak to you. This is a blessing. And we all have a story. And we are a part of it. And the culture wants to tell us that we have a story of when we had no story. That's what it wants to convince us of. But you know what? We have a story. The man that taught me that line, Stanley Hauerwas, famous ethicist from Duke University, was walking down this, we were running together as we were, I was getting ready to go to Portland. And he said, Peter, and he's got this funny voice. He's the son of a bricklayer. He's got this funny, raspy voice. He said, Peter, it doesn't matter whether you go to Portland or stay here in Chapel Hill. God's going to be with you wherever you go. And it's true. But I had to live that out. I had to experience that. And I had to start to learn how to retell my story. Because my story was not done. We all have a story that's not done. At all. I thought I was done when I got cancer. I thought I was done when I was just ashamed of myself, but I'm not. I'm here to talk about it because I'm becoming fully alive. I'm embracing my story. I'm sharing my story. And you can do that, writing it down, looking for companions. And then you can have the courage to share your suffering because there's other people suffering out there. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great night.
The Speakers Collaborative will return in a moment. During the break, please join us in providing feedback to our speakers. Simply scan the QR code and follow the prompts. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ro Jones with Big Ad Machine. At Big Ad Machine, we take your big ideas and turn them into big results. We're a human-guided advertising machine. We're not a vendor. We take a business partnership approach with all of our clients. We leverage media, technology, and data to create outstanding results. We build brands that stand out. If you've got big ideas, let us help you turn them into big results. Go to bigadmachine.com and let's talk.
Do you want to tell your story? Stop sitting on the sidelines. We built a stage. Get on it.
Hi, my name is Megan Donnelly, and I'm the owner and founder of The Digital Unicorns. Me and my small team create, build, and run digital experience operations for six-figure brands. Think back-end systems and processes, automation and technology, brand and user experience strategy. The people we work with have a proven product or service and are still working 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We come in and implement systems and processes to help them clear up at minimum 10 to 15 hours a week, but usually more. We help people implement 4-day work weeks and no working weekends unless they want to. Basically, your business runs like a well-oiled machine whether you show up for work that day or not.
This segment is brought to you by Phil Sayalitiki with Ameriprise Financial. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patrick Anderson.
So I met a young man last year, actually right here at the Speakers Collaborative, who since that time has had an amazing journey. So please join me in welcoming Patrick Anderson.
How do you find the strength to carry on when it seems like all hope is lost? My story begins a couple years ago, or part of my story that I'd like to share. And I left high school kind of on top of the world. I'm a runner, a long distance runner. In my senior year of high school, for my fall season, I went undefeated in my home state, and I won a handful of state titles. I came very close to winning a national championship. I delivered a commencement speech. I sold a business, and it felt like I was on top of the world. But during college, I've faced some struggles, and early on, something smaller. My collegiate, running career didn't start as I had envisioned it would, and I didn't finish the first few races that I ran. I was pulled up off the course by the medical team and was left questioning what went wrong, what didn't I prepare for? How did this happen? How did I get to a point of exhaustion that I couldn't finish the race? And early on at that time, I think I was left or faced those questions, but didn't see that the mental side of things and my mindset and how I was prepared mentally had a much larger effect than I would have thought. Couldn't connect the dots going forward. Only going back could I see that how the power of your mind and how much power it has over your body physically. And later on my freshman year, I started to figure some things out, and I was set to race the 10K at the conference championship at the end of my freshman year, which is a really long race, often reserved for the older guys who have trained harder and run longer, logged more miles, but trusted my coach and was set to do that. And in the middle of that race, I didn't think I was going to make it. And that negative voice in my head is telling me that you're not going to finish this. You don't have what it takes. You can't do it. And I thought I wasn't going to finish the race. I was going to drop out. And that little bit of a positive voice crept into my head that was, keep going. Take another step right now. Go 5 more meters. And that negative voice creeps back in and you think, I can't do this. I don't have it in me. I'm not going to make it. That's it. And the positive voice kicks back in. Go 5 more meters. Go another 100 meters. Keep going, Patrick. And I hung on to the end of that race and made it down to the last 100 meters and came just a half second away from winning a conference title my freshman year, because I was able to find a way to hang on to that positive voice, that keep going mindset. That's what got me through that. And I had a lot of success there that spring in that moment. And while it felt like I had figured some things out, at the same time, I think in a way it added some more pressure to me. And throughout the next couple of years of my running, I've had some highs and lows, but I think I've kind of fallen into a bit of the trap that other people fall into in any walk of life, which is attaching some of your identity or your worth to a performance or what you do. And so in some ways, I felt like I put an expectation on myself by performing well that I needed to do that again. And when I couldn't reach that same level or farther where I wanted to be, it felt like it wasn't just a failure of the race, but a failure of me. And at times struggled to see my worth or my value because I was attaching it so much to a performance or an external expectation or pressure. And then one morning, I woke up and I wasn't in my own bed. I didn't know where I was. I couldn't put it together. I couldn't open my eyes. But something in me knew that something had gone very wrong. It was a haze, but I was in a lot of pain. I was in so much shock that the pain was kind of overridden. And I didn't know it then, but there'd been a terrible accident on our way to practice. I couldn't put it together, and I wouldn't know for a while, but my spine had been broken, my chest was broken, and my face was shattered. I later learned that count was somewhere in the ballpark of 30 bones shattered, my skull shattered, my eyelids cut open. And I have very few memories of that day, but one that stands out, or really the only one that there is of having some level of consciousness and being aware that I felt like everything was slipping away from me. From my head all the way down to my toes. It felt like all the energy was being sucked out of my body. I thought that was it. I was going to die. And then that voice clicked in. Keep going, Patrick. Take one more breath. Between my lungs, between my broken chest and my broken back, choking on blood from a shattered face, found a way to listen to that voice. Take one more breath. If you can keep going, taking another breath right now, they're going to save your life. Then I slipped back out, unconscious. I didn't know it, but so many years of struggling against the idea of can you hang on in a race? Can you find the will to keep going, to take another step? Battling that value of, am I good enough? Is this performance good enough? Had paid off in the biggest way possible because I didn't know it, but I was cultivating this keep going mindset of find a way to keep going at all costs. And it's given me the ultimate perspective, making it through that. And I'd like to share some of what I've learned and what's gotten me through that. And the first one is relationships. Another memory that came back to me maybe a week later was when a friend was visiting in the hospital. I had tremendous support, and my friend Jesse was there, and I couldn't see him, but he said, I talked to me and I heard his voice and I realized he was there on the day of the accident. And this picture has been painted in my mind of him being there. And I've kind of have this hazy memory that I've painted from other people telling me. And it's me in this ditch and him there. He's holding my head that's shattered in his lap. He says, "Keep going, mate. It's gonna be all right. Just a few scrapes. Gonna be just fine." And it's this very hazy memory, but he was there to hold my head, try to keep me alive long enough for an ambulance to get there, to give me a fighting chance at life. And I use that as a strong example of the power of relationships. Could you be there in a high stakes moment for anybody in your life? And when you look at the people in your life, do you have people that would be there for you? I've had tremendous support from family, all my friends that were there to support me, and my coaches. And the next one is the ultimate perspective that I've gained and the gratitude that comes with that. I think in the face of death, everything kind of falls to the wayside. Any pressures, any external expectations, any stress, any of these things that I might have thought as a big deal before seem to slip away. And you're able to figure out what truly matters in your life, what's right in front of you. And with that gratitude, or with that perspective comes gratitude that has taken over my life in the last year. And any time that I've struggled, I've been able to lean on this gratitude, starting with things like when you couldn't walk or you can't move your back more than an inch in either direction, you're being spoon-fed. Man, a spoonful of ice cream seemed like the greatest thing in the world. And I've tried to carry that with me into anything that I might see as a challenge or dealing with pain for so many months, is hang on to this gratitude for how good I have it. Because I think that's something that maybe I got stuck in not being able to see before is, man, how good do I have it right now? And a couple of quotes I'd like to share. The first one is from Viktor Frankl, a famous psychologist and author, who says that everything can be taken but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. And that's to choose your attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose your way. I think that's really powerful because when you talk about having everything taken from you and quite literally being on a deathbed, the only thing that's left is your attitude, or how you think about it. And I think there's two routes. One is optimism, one is pessimism. Can you see the good in what you have? My spine was broken, but I'm here still walking. My face was shattered, but I still have a brain that functions. My eyes were torn, but I'm not blind. I can still see. And man, from what it could have been, I think you have to look to the good side. How good do you still have it? The next one is a quote from a surgeon that put my face back together, and it's that you create your own luck. I've been fortunate enough to form a relationship with him, and he has a really inspiring story himself. When he was my same age, he himself had a head-on collision with a car, and a very similar outcome, almost eerily similar, that he shattered his face and broke some of the same bones, and he should have died that day on the road, but everything went according to plan to get a helicopter off this mountain and get him to the hospital and saved his life. And we've talked and shared our stories, and he said that to me, that you create your own luck, and it really stuck out to me because he said that all the best medical attention in the world probably couldn't have saved you if you didn't have something in you to decide that you were going to hang on. And I think that's so important, that I think we don't realize so much of the time when we think things happen to us, we don't realize how much that we can still influence our luck. there's a statistic that about 1.5 million people die in collisions every year. So if I've been talking to you for over 10 minutes, since the time I started talking, over 30 people have died in a car accident. I think certainly I'm one of the lucky ones, but how much have I been able to influence that luck? I think that helps me hang on to the idea that cultivating this mindset and doing the hard things in life to be prepared for something to happen to you matters so much. And the last one that I'd like to share with you is a Jung quote about, he says that, "I'm not what happened to me, I'm what I choose to become." Sticking on this theme of choosing, I think still that it's so easy sometimes to get fixated on what could have been. What could my year have looked like athletically or academically if this didn't happen to me? What could I have done? Or you can hang on to, what can I still do? And I think even when that's really hard, coming back to all these things I've learned is the best way to do that. And I think you have to hang on to that positive voice in your mind to get you there. Otherwise, you can easily slip back. And one of the hardest lessons I've learned is through all of this is that you can't control anybody else or situation. I think I've had a year of pain, of tears, of anger, but also a year of growth in a way that's taught me that holding on to any kind of resentment for a situation or for a person does you no good. And that finding a way to let go of the things that you can't control is the ultimate freedom. And being able to have the perspective to look at it with a fresh set of eyes and to be able to move on through something with a positive outlook. So I've hung on to that to guide me. And even when it's hard, I think that helps me the most. And so I'm going to leave you with these couple ideas. Having a purpose in your life is absolutely crucial when you face hard times. Having relationships and people that will be there and hold your hands when it seems like the outlook is extremely bleak will carry you through. Having gratitude for the things you have will help you to hold on to what you do have instead of what you wish you could have. And that goes with having the perspective to be able to zoom out or zoom in on the present. And so I think if you have all those things, you'll always be able to keep going, even when it seems like there is no hope. Thank you.
The Speakers Collaborative will return in a moment. During the break, please join us in providing feedback to our speakers. Simply scan the QR code and follow the prompts. Thank you.
I wonder why. Because interacting with people who have Down syndrome makes you more empathetic, patient, and understanding. Companies that are committed to hiring, training, and retaining people with Down syndrome report positive feedback from coworkers and customers. A diversified workforce promotes an inclusive culture where differences, perspectives, and creativity are valued. Including people with Down syndrome will improve organizational health, change the overall perception of the business, and might even earn tax benefits.
When you have that desire to speak, but don't know where to start, we give you everything you need to tell your story. At the Speakers Collaborative, one night can change your life. We built you a stage. Get on it.
Please join me in welcoming Jillian Totman.
All right, I'm going to get this fixed so we can give Patrick the feedback that he deserves. And while I'm working on that, I'm going to ask my friend Jillian. Welcome to the stage, Jillian.
Hello. Are you ready? Are you ready to go on a journey? A journey from busy to more, from busy to better. Now, I'm going to start with a story. It was a Tuesday morning, much like any normal Tuesday morning. I was running late. I had to run by the office to print off some papers, so I started emailing while they printed. The printer stopped, and I was on my last email, and I was cutting it close, and I was just going to make it for my meeting across town when I was stopped cold. Mid-keystroke, my hands froze. They hovered above the keyboard as I stared at the computer screen. I couldn't read anything I'd typed. Now, I could see it. It wasn't blurry, but I couldn't read it. I took a moment and I squeezed my eyes as tight as I could, and then I opened them and I blinked a million times, trying to focus my brain. Like we've all done studying late night over college, or in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, when your child comes in and asks you for something, you have to focus your brain, orient. So I'm trying as hard as I can, and I can't read it. It's like it was a foreign language, like an alien language. So I got up from my desk, and I walked over to the door of my office. And a coworker walked by and said something to me, but I couldn't understand them. I tried to respond, but my head felt like an empty space, and I was grasping for words that weren't there. I walked back to my desk, and I sat down, and my husband's face came into my mind. I couldn't think of his name. Now, I've had kids with this man, so I know him pretty well. But I couldn't think of his name. I couldn't think of the word name, let alone his name. I sat there for several minutes, and then it came to me. Dominic. All right, that's my husband's name. It grounded me. He grounded me like he always does. And slowly the words started to come back. Desk, window, office. Okay, all right. Slowly, words started to come back into my mind. So I turned to my computer and I finished my email. I struggled for every word of that email, but I finished it and I hit send. And I closed my computer and I called my husband. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" "I'm good." I wasn't. But I didn't tell him what had just happened. I was testing myself to see if I could hold a conversation. Guys, I had a meeting to get to, right? I needed to be able to talk to people, so I used him as a guinea pig. When I satisfied myself that, okay, I can talk, I hung up the phone, I packed up my stuff, and I got in my car and I started driving across town. When I started to get tunnel vision in my right eye. And luckily, I pulled over into a gas station just in time before I lost complete vision in my right eye. I called my husband, and I confessed everything. He dropped everything and came and got me, and we went to the emergency room. They admitted me right away. They said, "Mrs. Topman, we're going to do some tests. We're going to do an MRI. We're going to do a CT. We're going to do an X-ray." Whoa, wait. I'm 6 weeks pregnant. As I'm laying in the machine, as it whirls around, loud as it can be, I'm sitting there worrying about my baby, wondering what was going to happen. They take me back, and I'm in the hospital bed, and finally they come in with a laptop. And there's a neurologist on the other side of that laptop. And he said, good news, you didn't have a stroke. Everybody breathe. I looked at your history. You had an acute migraine. It isolated the part of your brain that processes language, and instead of giving you a headache, it shut that down. You need to go home, you need to rest, and you need to take some stress out of your life. I don't have stress. I mean, I'm busy, but I don't have stress. But I was busy because I said yes to everything. Now, what I didn't tell you is prior to this incident, my boss had offered me this incredible opportunity to take over a second team. And I had stayed up night after night the week before researching because I was unfamiliar with the field in which this team worked. And I came up with a proposal and I submitted the proposal, and it was terrible, by the way. But I didn't pause for a minute to think, should I say yes to this opportunity? Because, I mean, come on. He was giving me more responsibility. I was going to manage 2 separate teams. But I had absolutely no interest in the field that this team worked in. I had no experience. I had no education. And I gave up sleep to do the research for a proposal that, at the end of the day, was not something that I wanted. So how do we figure out what to say no to? So Greg McKeown is the author of a great book called Essentialism. And in his book, he talks about 3 questions to ask yourself when you're presented with an opportunity. Number 1 is, will I regret this in a year? To be honest, like I said, I didn't have an interest in that field. A year from now, I could probably figure out a different way to show expanded leadership skills. Yeah, no. What's the trade-off? Well, for me, that week, it was sleep. If I had done a great proposal and I had gotten the team, my other team would have suffered because I would have been spending all of my time studying up on this field that I didn't know anything about. So my original team would have suffered. So what is the trade-off? And then the third thing that he says to think about is, how does it make you feel after? The other thing that I didn't tell you about this busy time is I was on 2 statewide boards, and I can't even tell you how many committees of community organizations. I was a mom of a 2-year-old, I was a wife, I was a daughter, I was a friend, I was a sister. I was busy. So how do you figure out what to say no to? You go through those questions. Okay. When I went through those questions, the 2 statewide boards, were they amazing opportunities? Sure. But when I said no to those and I resigned, it was like the world lifted from my shoulders. My time freed up. I was able to focus and be present with my family. I was able to focus at work, and I was opening myself up to more and better of what mattered. So now that you know how to figure out what to say no to, how do you say no gracefully? Cheryl Ann Skolnicki created this group called Brilliant Balance. She has a coaching program. It's phenomenal. She has a podcast where she talks in one of her episodes about how do you say no gracefully. Tell you another story. My friend Jennifer, I'm like I said, I'm busy. I'm involved in a lot. I'm constantly roping her into this and that and the other. So I called her one time and said, hey, can you volunteer with me at this gala? And she paused. Awkward silence. And she said, I'm flattered that you thought of me. This is such an incredible opportunity for you, and I'm so excited for you. But I cannot volunteer with you. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the time. She followed 4 principles that make a no graceful. She offered gratitude that I thought of her for it. She acknowledged the opportunity and the request. She told me no. Do not be that ex-boyfriend that you never really know if it's no or not. Say no. I'm done. I can't commit. And then 4th, offer grace. The grace she offered me was telling me why. But you can offer different kinds of grace. She could have said, oh, do you know Susie Q? Susie Q, she absolutely loves doing things like this. You should call Susie. You can also offer an alternative. You can say, hey, I can't go with you, but this is a fundraiser, right? Can I bid on like an online auction? I can't be there and I can't volunteer, but I could bid or participate. I could tell other people about it. So offer an alternative, offer some form of grace. What about grace to ourselves? My third and final point for you is we have to offer grace to ourselves. Because here's the thing, I love this quote. You can do anything, but you cannot do everything all at once. I was sitting in a chamber meeting for women down in Charlotte many years ago with Mayor V. Lyles was on stage, and they asked a question that gets asked a lot at women's chamber events. Mayor Lyles, how do you balance work and home? She offered the most authentic answer I have ever heard. She said, I don't. Because here's the thing, when you're focused on one thing, your attention is removed from the other. You can't do everything all at once. There's a book by Randy Zuckerberg, sorry. And Randy Zuckerberg's book is called Pick 3. And she has 5 categories that she puts all of her to-do list in. Family, friends, fitness, work, and sleep. Yes, sleep is in there. And what she says and what she offers is you can do 3 of those things really well in a day. But the other 2 probably are not going to get done. So pick 3. There are going to be times when work takes your attention. I travel a lot for work. And when I travel, I try to cram as much work as I can into that trip because I'm not with my family, I'm not with my friends. So I put as much as I can, I focus as much as I can on work. I try to maybe get a walk in, and I try to sleep. But sometimes you have to pivot. So I had a work trip planned recently. I'm so fortunate that I work for a company that not only gives lip service to work-life balance, and again, it's not balance as much as managing, but they support their employees in ensuring that you are where you need to be when you need to be there. So I had a work trip recently. My alarm was set for 2:30 a.m. I had to be at the airport for a 5 a.m. flight. Fun. But again, I try to maximize my travel days. And at 12:30, I'd just gone to bed about an hour before that. I'm awoken to the monitor and my daughter is crying out and she'd gotten sick all in her bed and had a high fever. I immediately got on the phone with the airline and with the hotel and I moved my trip. Because that day, my 3, mainly my 1, was going to focus on family. And that's okay. Because there was somebody else that was able to do that meeting. We are not replaceable, and that is a good thing. We help each other. And I had another colleague that was able, that was ready, and they were willing to go on that meeting and take care of what they needed to take care of that day. So pick 3 or 2 or 1, but focus and give yourself grace. Now, I hope today you've thought a little bit about the busyness of your life and I will say you guys have said yes to being here tonight, and the people watching, you have said yes to watching tonight. You could be at dinner with your spouse. You could be staying late at the office. Thank you for your support. But when somebody offers you an opportunity, I hope that you will pause. You should say yes. Offer a gracious no, if it's no. And then give yourself grace not to do everything all at once. Thank you.
The Speakers Collaborative will return in a moment. During the break, please join us in providing feedback to our speakers. Simply scan the QR code and follow the prompts. Thank you.
Do you want to tell your story? Stop sitting on the sidelines. We built a stage. Get on it.
This segment brought to you by Lux Mouse, a boutique travel concierge providing high-end experiences for every budget. Join us October 12th through the 14th in Orlando for the first Lux Mouse Wine and Dine around the world. Packages are available at luxmouse.net.
And now, please welcome back your host, Cody Hand.
And now it's my turn. Have you ever been sitting in the audience where you are now, looking at somebody doing something and thinking, I want to do that. Like, that's exactly where I need to be. Have you been in the stands watching your favorite team play, think, why am I not on the field? Why am I not on that stage, giving that talk, singing that song, playing the guitar? Why am I not doing that thing? Why am I doing this thing? I did that for a really long time. I sat exactly where you are, hearing some pretty mediocre speakers, none of them with the Speakers Collaborative, thinking, A, I could do better, but B, I have something to say. And people tell me they want to hear it. So a couple of years ago, I decided I'm going to give it a go. And I met with a speaking agent. By the way, that jumps from, I want to do this to professional. I skipped a whole lot of stuff in the middle. What she told me I skipped was, you need content, you need footage, you need to know what you're going to talk about. People aren't just going to hire me to speak because I'm cool. You need headshots, you need all these things. I had nothing, and I had no way to get it. Because speaking is a chicken and egg situation. You need to speak to get the content that you need to market yourself, and you need content to market yourself to speak. And so you never know where to start. It's much like a sport. You need to be able to play the game to practice to get good, but you can't get good without playing the game. And so last year, I decided that I would do just what she said. I'd get that content. I looked around to see if I could get on one of those popular stages, on one of those really great YouTube shows. they didn't let guys like me on there. So I was sitting at the house one night, pondering my future, pondering a future of sitting where you are today, continuing to dream and not doing anything about it. And I had this idea, why don't I just produce my own? Why don't I do my own show? And so I started to look at the logistics and I priced it out. And I thought, well, I could do this. But I didn't want to do it alone because I thought, I want to give it some credibility. Now, at the time, my why, my reason for doing it was because I needed content to market myself. But I wanted it to look professional. So I needed a team of people to join me on stage. And so I took a really good friend of mine out, Robin Kimball Eisenbeiss, who's here tonight. Amazing person, by the way. And I ran this idea by Robin thinking, because she'd been doing a lot of speaking, great book, I just want to run it by her. See if she knows anybody that might need this sort of content and this sort of event. And we're sitting at this coffee shop, talking through my idea, and she interrupts me and she says, I'm in, I want to do it. And at that point I thought, no, you're here, we're here. I don't think, anyway, Robin jumped in. And about a year ago, this week, we produced the first Speakers Collaborative. Remember, my why for doing that was to get the content that I needed and provide it for everybody else, but my why was to do that. And so we got on stage just down the street. I gave my talk about knowing your worth. Still one of my best talks. You should look at it if you get a minute. I've actually had to watch my own talk over this past year to talk myself into knowing my own worth. I did my talk, got my content. But something happened that night last year that changed everything. Robin got on stage, and Robin talked about giving people their name back, much like Peter was saying tonight, using people's name. It gives them their humanity back. It acknowledges their presence. And I've done that this year. I've used people's names everywhere I go, and it is amazing how it changes their lives that very day. Robin did that at the Speakers Collaborative, followed by Kara, who gave a really moving talk about her experience learning to dive so she could heal generational trauma. Susan talked to us about busyness, about slowing down and taking care of yourself and healing. And Matthew, who is here tonight as well, convinced me at that very moment that the best employee to hire is someone with Down syndrome. They will be your best employee. Trust me on that. As each one of them spoke that night, my why started to change from I need this content to people have stories. People have stories that they want to tell, but more importantly, people have stories they need to hear. You see, when you sit in the crowd and you sit on that dream that you feel so deep that it can't be anything other than your calling, when you sit on that, you are depriving someone else of the healing of hearing your story. If Jillian hadn't just told us about her ability to slow down because she had to slow down to take care of herself and how to do it, somebody watching tonight might not have ever heard that and maybe a day away from the same experience. Peter inspired us to tell our stories, to give our names, to live into that. I'm so excited that Patrick was here. Patrick was with us last year. I can't imagine what his talk would have been like if he had given it then. I'm so glad he gave it today. It was such an interesting experience to be standing in the wings of that stage, and my why completely changed. I think you should all remember that your why, you don't have to marry it. You don't have to live with it for the rest of your life. A third of the people surveyed feel stuck. They feel like they are not living what they're called to live. They did everything they were supposed to. They went to college. They went to graduate school. They got that job right out of college, that internship. And here we are 20 years later wondering, is this it? Is this it when what I really want to do is what that person's doing? Let me tell you, it's not it. And as Ashley told us earlier, when you start to become your own best advocate, you start to do it to yourself. You see, my why changed. Yeah, I'm still speaking. I'm still available to book. Anybody out there? But my why for doing the Speakers Collaborative, and the reason we're here again tonight, and the reason we're doing it again in August and October and January, and we're going to keep doing it as long as we have people on stage. The reason that my why changed is because I saw the value in giving this stage to everybody else. What I found when I was planning out the next few productions, I'm not on the list. I'm not getting on the stage. My why is no longer a selfish reason for doing this. My why is because I built a stage, and you need to get on it. Thank you.
Do you want to tell your story? Stop sitting on the sidelines. We built a stage. Get on it.